Hello, crafters. Well, it's Kimmy here. And first off, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody that's recently viewed my videos and liked my YouTube channel. Please subscribe. I'd love to be able to keep showing you videos, and it really inspires me to know that people are watching them. So I'm going to show you this really great technique to make this beautiful card. And it is a gesso resist technique. And I'm going to show how to use this technique with distress oxides, which are my favorite, and also with some paint. So I'm going to show you two different ways. And we're going to make this beautiful little card. And so I'm really highlighting this background piece, and this is the technique that I'm showing you. Okay, so I'm going to just set that up there. Is that still on the camera? No. Maybe I'll just put it over here so it's still on the camera so you can see it. Okay, so I'm going to start out with a stencil of some sort and a piece of white cardstock. So I've just cut it 4" by 5 1/4. And then I have my white gesso, which I'm going to give a little shake. Okay, and I like to use a couple little tips actually. First off, I absolutely love my glass Tim Holtz tonic matte. Love it, but it does give off quite a glare. And so I like to put this rubber mat on top of it because it is it's easy to wash off. But the glass mat is so great and on a table, like if you've got a folding table or something, and sometimes you skip when you stamp, it's because the surface underneath is uneven. And so I love the glass mat because it is completely firm, solid, and it's great for stamping. So another little tip is I have my table covered in the butcher paper that you get it at Costco in Canada. And I just cover my table with it. It keeps it nice and clean. But then I cut some into small chunks, and I just keep those on like my little rolly cart that I have right beside me. And I use them up and then I throw them away. And so it's just an easy way to just kind of have paint there and have it accessible. So I'm going to just pour a little bit of white gesso, and this is just Liquitex that I'm using. And then I have got just plain, so it's plain white gesso. And so I've got my white cardstock that's 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have this silicone trivet. And it's from the dollar store, and it's literally a trivet. So let me just show you here. I have a few different ones that I found, and they come 2 in a pack. This pattern, this pattern, and this pattern. And so, yeah, super fun. Now you could also use a stencil for this technique, but I just thought this was fun just to use this. So I'm going to take and use a brush, and I'm going to just apply gesso, that white gesso, right onto my silicone mat, which is going to be my stencil. So it's pretty cool. So because it's silicone, some of the paint will kind of try and resist and bubble up. And so I just go back over top of it and just add a little bit of paint and just kind of smooth it out so that I get paint all over the place. And I literally get paint all over the place. It splatters all over the place. So I'm not too worried about it like building up in the corners and stuff like that. You can see where the paint is kind of building up. I'm not worrying too much about that. I'm just getting a nice light coat of white gesso onto there. Making sure I don't miss any spots. Okay. So there you go. There's that. I'm going to take it now. I'm going to flip it, and I'm going to line it up onto my cardstock and stamp it. Okay, so just holding it, come down, gonna eyeball it. It's actually just such a perfect size for the cardstock, and stamp it down there. Okay, peel that off. Okay, and then afterwards, I just washed it with soap and water, and it just washed right off. Now, a little tip, I like to keep an old toothbrush, and I always joke when I teach classes that no, it's not my husband's toothbrush. It's an old one that I keep by the sink, and I keep it there to clean stencils. And so I would just use my toothbrush and some soap and water to clean that up, all right? So you can kind of see on here, hopefully you can see on the camera, just that that stencil that's on there, my gesso, okay? So I'm gonna set that aside and I'm just gonna let that dry, and I'm gonna show you how to do this technique with the Distress ink. And then I'm gonna use that one that's drying and I'll show you how to do it with some paint, okay? So this one here I pre-did. So I'm going to use for this 2 colors, and they're newer Distress Oxide colors, and I was thinking, oh, I bet you they'll look really beautiful together, and they definitely do. I was really going for this kind of quite monochromatic look, and I love the way it turned out. So I like to just take the lids off there, and then I have my round foam pads that I keep with each of my ink pads, and I've got a handle that I have like a spot where I just hang all my handles, and then I have the little foam pads that I stick on the bottom of the ink pad with it to store. So this gesso stencil is completely dry, okay? So I'm gonna take, and I always start on an outside edge. I don't ever start in the center when I'm doing inking, because then I'm gonna get like a big dollop, right? A big circle in the center, and I don't want that. The other thing is when I'm loading it on the foam pad into the ink, I don't slam it down really hard. I tap it. I move it around and I just tap it, and that's enough to load the ink on there. I like to start light. I can always get darker. So I'm going to start on this edge, and I'm going in a circular motion, and I'm just kind of rubbing that around, coming down in a circular motion. Okay, so you can see how it just blends out because I started on an outside edge. So I'm going to start there. So now I'm going to come over here and do the same thing, circular motion, just moving that around. Now I have this thing, if you watch my videos, I have this thing about triangles. Visually, for art, triangles give us success. So if I have red primarily here, red primarily here, I'm going to put some red right here so that I have a triangle. I'm not going to put red directly below this red because visually it's going to clog it up. So I want to have a triangle of color. All right, so I've got lots of red on there. That's lumberjack plaid. And then saltwater toffee is the other color that I'm using that is very complementary. I'm just loading that up, starting on my outside edge and coming in with it. So now I'm filling in all of the spaces, starting on my outside edges and coming in, just filling the spaces that are white. Okay, nice. Isn't that looking great? Okay, so that is it for my Distress inks. I can set that aside. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a clean piece of paper towel, and I'm going to buff. Now I could totally leave it like this, right? Like, I mean, it's beautiful. Just like that, and make my card. It's lovely. But I do want to buff off some of the ink on the gesso just to bring back up that design that I have stenciled on there. So I'm going to just take my paper towel and I'm just going to rub it right on the gesso that's stenciled. So see how it's just wiping off the ink, and it's just revealing that gesso stencil. There we go, just like that. Hey, fantastic. What a great background. Okay, so I'm going to show you now using this one that I did before. I'm just going to give it a quick heat. Just pushing down on those little bubbles so that I don't smudge them. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. I try not to do heating in videos because it's kind of a waste of time. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a background, and you can see here on this one I've prepared. I used the rose trivet, rubber trivet on there, and the gesso, and then I used these two colors here, this bright pink and this burgundy. So this is a basics acrylic paint, and it's called Elizarian, I can't even say that, Crimson Hue. And then this one is called Medium Magenta. Okay, so I'm going to take and just put a little bit onto here. Just a little dollop. Oh, dollop will do ya. And okay, got the pink all over my fingers. Put the pink over there. Okay, so I'm going to start out with I've got this all over my fingers. I'm going to start out with the Crimson Hue, and I'm going to just tap a little bit of my paper towel into my paint, okay? And I'm going to just smear it right onto the cardstock. So again, I'm just going in that circular motion, and I'm just kind of filling in a few different areas, okay? Swirling it, kind of adding it in there. All right, now I'm going to pick up that pink color, that magenta, and I'm going to fill in the other areas. Okay, I want to blend these two together a little bit on their edges. I don't want like a crisp edge. I want to blend. I'm going to add a bit more of the crimson in here. So now I've almost got like this real blended color, hey? Like you can barely see the difference between the two, and that's totally okay. So now I'm going to just take my paper towel and just kind of find a clean spot in it, and I'm going to buff it right away and get some of that paint off of my white gesso. Now, if it's not coming super easily, then grab a baby wipe and just give it a little buff. Go onto your gesso spots and look at how the baby wipe just helps pull off that paint on there. So just kind of focusing on where you've stenciled, bring it up and see how much it takes off. Hey, it really lightens it. So you got to be careful not to do too much, because we do want to keep the colors bold. Now, if I feel like, oh, you know what, I've just taken off too much, I can come back in with some of my crimson red and add it a little bit in there, right? Get that corner a little bit darker, right? And then right away, just kind of tapping it, accenting where those lines are for my stencil, to keep my stencil really vivid and sharp. Okay. Now I'm not going to worry too much about the very center piece, because I'm going to end up putting those pretty flowers and stuff on it, right? So that's all going to go here in this corner. So it's really up here that I want to make sure looks good, or I can flip it and go, okay, you know what, I actually really love this area, and I'll put my flowers, sorry, and my sentiment down here on this area. Okay. So there you go. That is the technique. Basically, that is it. So I'm going to show you how to finish the rest of the card with this pretty die that I have. So I'm just going to wipe this up. Okay, so I have finished this one prior, so that I could just move along really quickly. And I also have my card base. And so I just have a simple card that is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and it's an A2 card. Okay. Then I cut my black matting, and I like to cut it just a tiny bit bigger. So it is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. And then this paper, as I mentioned before, was 4 inch by 5¼ so that this way I'm going to get this really nice matted look with just this small border of black around the outside edge. Okay, so this one has been painted. I used the rose one. It is buffed. I have inked it with black ink and then I distressed it. So I'm going to now take it, and I've put the tape on already. I put sequin on the back because I love me some sequin. And I'll center that on there. Okay, now I cut this circle out of just a pretty little die that I have. Okay, and then what I like to do, I'm going to just show you here, is with a coordinating color. So one of the colors I used, and I want to go lighter with this one. I just take it and I rub it right into my splat mat and spray water. Softens it up, and then now I take my piece, and with the good side I swipe it down into that ink and get that ink on there. Okay, so if I've added too much water and I feel like, oh, you know what, I really want it darker, then I can dry it and swipe it through a second time. You can just see how messy I am. I'm a messy crafter. There you go. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside to dry, and I already have this one dry and this one dry, and I'm going to show you how I put that gold dust on there. So that is a product that's called Aged Enamel, and this is bronze that I'm using, and I like to just put it onto a piece of paper towel to start with and make sure it's nice and flat. I just tap a little bit of the embossing powder into my lid, and then I pinch it. So I'm not actually going to take it, I'm going to lift it, and I want to add a bunch of that embossing powder over here on this side because it's going to come in underneath my words. So I just pinch it and I sprinkle it on. Okay, there's a whole bunch there. It's looking good. It's quite concentrated over on this side. Then I take my heat gun and I heat it from underneath. So I need to be really careful around my powders, but I take it and heat it underneath. And you can see the paper curl. Oh no. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you. That was great. It was quite a happy accident there to show you how the paper can curl on you. And I lost a whole bunch of the embossing powder. It just slid right off. So I've heated it, and so you can see, right, I heated it, finished it off. So now I'm going to just pinch and I'm going to add some more on there because it was not enough on there now. Okay, so it should be good now. It shouldn't curl on me. The paper should be drier. And again, just from underneath, going to heat it. And I just like to move my embossing gun around, kind of swirling it, moving it around, keeping it moving so that I don't burn the paper. Trust me, burned my fingers and the paper a zillion times. But I love the technique, so it's worth it. Okay, so there you go. So that is done, that circle. Isn't that so pretty? All right, so I'm going to set that aside. I've got that made and ready to go. And I'm going to show you how I did these flowers. So the flowers are cut from this die here by Studio Light, and I think it's called Lots of Love. Great. I used both the sentiment and the flower out of this die set. And so I'm going to use, because I'm staying within this color palette, I'm going to use my my Distress Oxides again. So I'm going to take this and I'm just going to lift up this edge because I want to keep the frame of the flower light. I want to keep it kind of whitish, lighter. And I'm going to very gently just move my foam pad around the petals of my flower. Okay, so I'm very gently moving them around, trying to just buff on just a little bit of ink in there. Oh, I got that white border, whoops. Okay, I can see quite a line here, so I kind of want to buff that a little bit more. Okay, so there's one, and let's do the second one. So this is where I can use my own creativity and discretion to decide how much ink I want there, how light or how dark do I want that to be. Okay, and then I'm going to take a little bit of the saltwater taffy and just really dust a tiny little bit. I'm just kind of twisting as I just kind of move it around in here, just twisting it around and adding just a little bit of that peachy color into the center. Okay. So now that I have that, I'm going to take and use my paintbrush and a little bit of Distress Collage Medium. Now this is one of my absolute favorite products and an absolute must-have on my craft desk. You can see the inside of my pot because I take a zillion different items, dip it into the Distress Collage Medium and apply it. So I do gold leafing and beads and all these different products. It is the most incredible glue, holds things on. It's one of the best things I found for sequins. So when you go to put on a sequin and then they always pop off, this collage medium actually keeps them on. And so I love this stuff. All right, so I'm going to dip just a little bit of the collage medium onto my brush, and then I'm going to stick it right into my embossing enamel. Okay, now I'm going to paint it right onto my flower. Now I could do the same technique as I did with the circle and put it on top, lift the flower up, and heat it from underneath. I can totally do that. But what I find is that it's really difficult because of the shape of the flower, because of the die cut. It's hard to keep it on there. It's like it needs a glue, right? So this is my glue. And so I put this on and then I heat it up, and it basically helps to be my glue without using a VersaFine. I could totally use a VersaFine ink pad, but then I don't get it kind of this natural kind of clumps to it, and I quite like that. I think it looks very pretty. So now I'm going to just set aside my powder, and I'm going to heat set those. So you can watch the enamel just turn on there, bubbles up, and the Distress paint just kind of goes clumpy, kind of gets a little fried in there, and I really like it. Fantastic. Okay, so I am going to take my card, and while I have this out, I'm going to just take a little bit of the Distress Collage Medium and a little bit of my enamel, and I'm just going to add a little bit to the corner of my card, just kind of tying in all of these different textures and colors. So just swiping it on there a little bit. Okay, and heat set that. All right, so our card is coming right along. Now I'm going to take the circle that I already pre-embossed, and I'm going to just put some foam squares on the back of it. So again, I want this enamel to be over here on the bottom right, and I've kind of got it sitting off the card a little bit because that's where I'm going to put my sentiment, lots of love. I want it to really show up in underneath there. So I'm going to use my Distress enamel. Just use my brush again, wipe that off. and pick up a little bit of, sorry, not my Distress Enamel, my Distress Collage Medium, and that's going to be how I'm going to glue my flowers on. So I'm just going to put a little bit of it on the bottom. Now I will often use like Sookwang or something, but because this has all of these frames and these open areas in here, I just found that it was easier to use the collage medium for it. So I'm going to place this flower on here like that. Put some collage medium on the back of this guy. Okay, and I think I like it with these kind of branches over here, these petals, sorry. Kind of overlay them a little bit. The other nice thing about collage medium is that it has some flexibility. You can still move it around, okay? So I'm going to just press that down, and then I'm going to take just a couple black beads and pick those up with my paintbrush and put those into the center. Come back out. Okay, a little bit more collage medium and put that into the center there. In the center there. Love the black beads. They just pop everything. Come on now, there you go. Okay, so lots of love. Put these beads away before I spill them. So I wanted lots of, just a little bit of collage medium on the back of it. So it's kind of over here. And I haven't quite fully put it down yet because I want to put the other part, the love part on there before I push it down. Okay, so I've got love. Make sure it's nice and straight. It's sticking to my finger. All right, and down you go. And press down lots of. Sometimes if I can't get them to kind of stick, but I know there's enough glue on there, what I'll do is I'll just take a stamp block and I'll just set it right on top. So maybe right on top of my flowers and everything. Just set it right on top like that and just give it like a couple minutes just to dry up. So the last thing I'm going to add, just some dollar store sequins. And so I like to, again, do things in threes. So I'm going to put just a little dollop of the Distress Collage Medium, a little dollop there, a little dollop up here, and a little dollop up there. Just those three spots. And I'm going to pick up a sequin with my brush that still has a tiny bit of the collage medium on it. It's just sticky enough that it picks up the sequin. Come on. This little pack of them is stuck together. Okay, press it into there. There's one more and press it into there. All right, and so there you go. That card is finished. All right, pop that off of there. Oh, see, that moved. I think it needs a little bit more. It dried out. Thought I was done. Psych. Smooth that out. There we go. And the other thing about the collage medium is that it dries clear, right? So there's not a lot of products out there that dry totally clear. They say they do, but then once you actually get them to dry, they're not clear. There's some kind of gloss or some kind of like little sheen and you can see the lines. And with Collage Distress Medium, you can't. It dries completely clear. All right, so there it is. Let's just make it our beautiful focal point because it's so pretty. All right, and here they are, our two different cards. So thanks again for watching. I hope you enjoyed the technique of the Gesso Resist, and I hope you subscribe and watch some of my other videos. Have a wonderful day.